Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli out here in the shop, and I've got a great tip for you today on fishing a realistic crawfish imitation bait. You know, the funny thing about this is that this technique doesn't use a crawfish shape, but it uses a creature shape that I'm going to modify to look like a crawfish. You know, my favorite creature bait to use for this modification is the Berkley power bait. This is a creature bait called a power hog. I really like the 4-inch size because it mimics the size of a lot of crawfish. And if you look at this bait, this is a traditional creature style lure. But we're going to modify this thing and we're going to rig it 2 different ways to make it actually look and act like a crawfish, more than a crawfish shape. First thing you're going to do, you pull out of the pack, all these legs are locked together, and we want to unlock that action. So you're basically just going to break off these little pieces of plastic off the legs to unlock the action. These big 2 curl arms, unlock those, okay? That's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to unlock all that stuff. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to modify these 2 big flappers to mimic the crawfish arms and pincers on a natural crawfish. Basically, all we're going to do is we're going to get our scissors and we're going to make 2 V cuts into each side of those flappers. And I just do them down on an angle. So I'm going to do 1, 2. I'm going to get that piece and pull it out. Looky there. Got a nice little crawfish pincer. Going to do the same thing on the other flap. 1, 2 nice cuts. Pull that piece out. There we go. There's our second crawfish pincer. And then I like to add a little bit of spike it or dye on the ends of those pincers. And depending on where you're at, you really want to mimic the crawfish. I like red, I like orange. Sometimes the crawfish have a little bit of chartreuse, a little bit of grayish white. And then in a lot of places, the crawfish start to look a little blue. They get a bluish tint, especially when they're molting. So you can go ahead and put that dye, and I just put it on the ends of the pincers, just to make it look like a natural crawfish. So modify it with your spike it or your dye to get whatever color you like. And now we're going to rig this thing. And the great thing about this bait is you could rig it 2 different ways. Easy way to rig it is Texas style. Everybody knows Texas style. You can use a 3/0 flipping style hook or an offset hook, whatever size tungsten weight you want. I like, you know, a 1/4 ounce to a 5/16. And when you Texas rig it and you're dragging it, if you look, that crawfish is moving along the bottom backwards, in reverse, just like a crawfish would. Look at those pincers, up in the air, defensive position. Here's these little thin legs in the back that look like the antenna, right? It's going to look like the antenna on that fish. So Texas style is a great way to rig it. But my favorite way to rig this modified craw bait is Nikko style. Nikko style. So you don't need a Nikko worm. You could actually fish this bait Nikko style. Nikko rig consists of a weight. This is a VMC Half Moon Wacky weight. This is one of my favorites for using the Nikko presentation. This one's a 1/16 of an ounce. You can get them all the way up to a 1/4. And I'm going to take that bait. I'm going to get that weight and I'm going to stick it in the fat end. The fat end here in the back. I'm going to push that all the way down. If you don't like the silver, you can get a little black Sharpie or a black paint marker and paint that black. It'll blend in more. And then the next step is I'm going to use an O-ring. An O-ring or tubing, heat shrink tubing works as well. And I put this over the body and I want to get one of these black rings and pull it down onto the body of the bait. When I pull it down, I want to get that all the way to the front of the bait. I'll show you here in a second. I'm going to pull it all the way down to where those big flappers start. I want to pull it down the body to where those big flappers start, okay? So I've got it down right to where those arms are at. And then the last piece I'm going to use is the hook for Nikko rigging. I like a VMC weedless Nikko hook is the one I like because I like to throw this thing around and cover just like you would a jig. And this is a number 1 or a number 2 weedless VMC hook. And then the final step is to put that hook in this bait so that as you're working it, the point is facing up and the bait's pulling backwards. You always want to fish this modified creature Craw style bait working naturally backwards. So I'm going to go hook in under the O-ring through the bait. And as I pull this thing along the bottom, it's going to be tail down, up in a defensive position, just like a real crawfish would do. That Nikko weight is going to help it stay on the bottom. That crawfish arm's going to be flared out, and your little antenna, crawfish antenna, are going to be dangling in the back. Try this modification with your favorite creature bait. I guarantee if you want to imitate a crawfish, try that modification, Texas style, or especially Nikko style. You're going to catch a ton of fish. Mike Iaconelli in the shop with my favorite crawfish imitation.